In this section, we are going to talk about Windows 365. Again, this is not part of the Microsoft 365 suite. This is a separate component, but it is part of the Microsoft 365 ecosystem. So what I mean by that is when you look at the Microsoft 365 components, the tool set included are Viva, Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, Teams, all the apps, things like that. That's what I mean by being part of that suite. Windows 365 is a SaaS-based VDI platform. Like users can use a subscription-based model to access these desktop devices like Windows 10 or Windows 11 using a browser. It's a SaaS-based model, and it is really integrated well with the Microsoft 365 because you can use Microsoft 365 products to manage, maintain, assign licenses. Who can do that? So that is why it is closely related to Microsoft 365. So you can expect some questions on Windows 365 as well on a Microsoft 365 questionnaire. So we'll go through 10 questions. I'm sure if you're new to Windows 365, you will understand everything, and then you can do further reading later. All right, so the first question is, what is Windows 365 and how does it differ from the traditional virtual desktop? Here, first of all, the interviewer is trying to understand, do you know what is Windows 365? That is what I said just a while ago. A Windows 365 is a cloud PC service that provides a secure, always on Windows experience hosted in the Microsoft cloud. Unlike traditional desktop infrastructure, you don't need a lot of infrastructure to host this service. It is just like your Exchange Online. It is hosted by Microsoft, providing that service for you. So before I go and on and talk to you more about it, I just want to paint the picture. So let me quickly go to my lab and see if I can show you what Windows 365 is first, so that next time whatever I'm talking about Windows 365, you know what it is. So if I go to a browser and go to windows365.microsoft.com, that first check if I have the license to use this service. If I have license to use this service, it tells that, hey, you have the license to use this service. You can actually launch this Windows device here, or you can download an application on your preferred device. Like if you're using a Windows or Mac or iOS or Android, you download any of this application and you can load the Windows experience within that application. There are two options for me. Either I can use the browser or the app. For this demonstration, I'm going to use the browser because I just want to show you what it is. So if I click on open in a browser, even before that, you can see that it tells, hey, what is this? It tells that this is a Windows 10 device. It has 4 vCPU, it has 16 GB RAM, it has some storage associated with it, all of that. And I can rename it on however I want. It has the restore option, blah, blah, blah. If you want to know more about it, I have a masterclass video on end to end from creation to all sort of management. So I don't want to talk about that anymore here. So let's go to the other tab. Here, before connecting, it is asking, hey, do you want to have connectivity to your local peripherals like printer, your file transfer, microphone, clipboard, camera, things like that. So if you want to use Teams and you want to use your local camera, then enable this. If you want to move files from your local device to this particular virtual device, then enable this, things like that. So then you click on connect, and now it is going to establish a connection. For some reason, it is not allowing me to connect. So let me show another example. Let me bring up an app. Here I'm using an app, not the browser experience. So you can see that there is a machine allocated for that user. If I double tap on it, it will launch the Windows 365 experience. You can see that this is a Windows 365 device. Whenever you sign in, you can start off from where you left off. So when I signed in, these were the windows opened in that particular device. So I can immediately open and start using that where I left off. So that's the extent of the picture I want to paint. If you want to know more about it, you know where to find that information. So let me quickly go back to the presentation. So first and foremost, you understood so far. Now, next, the key points are, first of all, it delivers a dedicated cloud PC. So every time you access Windows 365, it is a dedicated personal device for you as a user. So it has the persistent state. What does it mean? So if you make any changes in the device, it stays, it retains that state. It doesn't wipe or remove any sort of content when you log off and log in again. So that is what you need to understand. Second, it has a simplified management ability. So you can use the Microsoft Intune or Endpoint Manager to manage these devices. So management compared to other traditional VDIs is quite simple when you start managing Windows 365. Because if you have to manage the traditional RDS or Citrix or VMware, you have to have niche skills, first of all, understanding about how their tool work, and then further investment on hardware and licensing and things like that. Here, you basically go to Intune and start managing it. It's super easy. Then this is the key highlight for me. It's like fixed price per user. Just like your Microsoft 365 subscription license, Windows 365 offer a fixed per user subscription model where you can assign a license to a user and then user can use that device. And I showed you an example where users can access from any device, like access from Mac, iOS, or Android or Windows device. They have access to different applications, or you can use a web browser to access. So it's basically super simple to connect and use, easy to use it. So use the combination of all of these points to land the messaging on this question. First and foremost, tell that it's a cloud PC service which is hosted in the Microsoft cloud. It is not like another typical virtual desktop infrastructure is needed to host this. And main point you need to highlight here is it has the fixed pricing model. So make sure you land these points. The next question is 67. Here, a company wants to enable employees to securely access their personalized work environment from any device. And how can Windows 365 help? So this is a security related question, trying to gauge your understanding about, does Windows 365 offer any sort of security in-house or in-built, or what are the additional external security measures you can use which is part of Microsoft 365 within this service? So that is what you have to keep in mind while answering this question. So let me populate the answer here. First, the company wants to enable employees to securely access their personalized work environment. To do that, Windows 365 offer the first option called login from any device. So it doesn't matter where they are signing in from, as long as they have an internet connectivity and a web browser, they can connect into Windows 365. It is super simple, super effective, super quick. If they want a different experience, like an app based experience, which is quite good if you have multiple monitor, then you can download the remote desktop client or the Windows 365 app from the store. That allows them to use the app experience, which allow them to use multiple screen and things like that. The next one is resume work instantly. I kind of showed that when I logged into the other Windows 365 instance, it already have some windows opened and ready for me, because if I'm doing something, if I finish my work, I can close that window and I can walk away. I don't have to log off or shut down. It retains that state. When I sign in again, it actually preserved the previous state on how I left that Windows running. So it is quite good in terms of like not relaunching all the application to restart all the work, things like that. So it keeps that persistent state, meaning files, settings, app remain unchanged between these sessions. The third point is enhanced security. So again, I'm sure by this time now you know how to answer the M365 related security question. You can tell that Microsoft 365 offers advanced security functionalities or features like conditional access, multi-factor authentication, endpoint security policies. These are all applicable to all products, not only Exchange Online or SharePoint Online or OneDrive or Viva or Teams. It is applicable to entire Microsoft 365 stack because it integrates really well with all these platforms. You can create one single policy which can be applied across multiple platforms and things like that. Finally, you can manage these centrally. So if you remember, I talked about a solution called Microsoft Intune or Endpoint Manager. You can use that to manage these cloud PCs centrally within your organization. You can update it, you can define policies and things like that. So use these combination of points to answer or address the security related topic of Windows 365. Let's look at question number 68. We are using the detection method to find which is not the feature of Windows 365. When we go through this exercise, we will learn three features of Windows 365 by eliminating one which is not. The first option is always on cloud PC access with persistent user experience. I'm sure by now you exactly know it is a persistent user experience. I kind of demonstrated it to you. Cloud PC is always on, ready for you all the time. When you try to launch it, it immediately opens the experience how you left out before. So it is correct answer. The second is pay-as-you-go pricing based on cloud resource consumption. That is wrong. I think in the first question on the Windows 365 module or section, I talked about one of the key feature or the benefit or one of the highlight of Windows 365 is it is a per user fixed monthly subscription model cost like Microsoft 365, not a pay as you go pricing model. Pay as you go is what it is used within Azure. If you want to create a VDI instance yourself, you can use Azure Virtual Desktop to do that. When you use Azure Virtual Desktop, you can create this platform yourself. It's a platform capability wherein you will pay as you go pricing model based on the amount of resources you consume in a month. So that's not a Windows 365 feature. Next option or the feature is integration with Microsoft Endpoint Manager for device policies. 100% right. You can use Intune or it is known as Endpoint Manager for any sort of device policies or management of these resources. The last point is ability to stream a Windows desktop to Mac operating system, Linux and Android device. 100%. I told before that you can either access using an app or as long as you have an internet connectivity and a web browser, you can connect into this Windows 365 by simply going into windows365.microsoft.com and sign in with your username and password. So the answer for this question is pay-as-you-go is not a part of Windows 365 feature. Let's look at question number 69. How does Windows 365 ensure security and compliance for organization? So here, this is another security question. The interviewer is trying to gauge your understanding about the broader security, what you can bring in to further enhance the existing security aspect of Windows 365. So you can talk about things like Microsoft Defender for Endpoint is integrated with Microsoft 365. You can deploy this Defender endpoint into these Windows 365 cloud PCs, which can help protect from malware and cyber threats. Because by default, the Endpoint Defender will be part of these cloud PCs, so that can be used to track any sort of cyber threats or malware attacks and can prevent from that. So that is one way of addressing that question. Second is conditional access. Conditional access is such a great, reliable or versatile tool which you can adapt into multiple solutions. Like it can prevent any sort of unauthorized access. So you can define a conditional access and you can define conditional access and multi-factor authentication together, saying that, hey, only users signing in from this device can access it, or your local device have to be part of a specific IP address, or local devices software need to be updated so that you can access the cloud PC, things like that. All of this can be defined in the conditional access, and additionally you can define multi-factor authentication to have an extra authentication before letting that user run that application or launch the Windows 365 app. The fourth one is the data encryption part. So by default, the Windows 365 devices are encrypted at rest, and additionally you can encrypt both the storage and the network traffic on how you design this traffic flow in between. Finally, role-based access control. So this ensures that only authorized users can manage these cloud PCs. So if you are a organization, you want to limit the number of people who have control on cloud PC management, you can define role-based access control that will limit the people within your organization who can control these policies. So you use the combination of all of these points or some of these points in your answer as ingredients to frame a good sentence to answer this particular question. Let's look at question number 70. The question is, an IT admin need to scale the cloud PC performance for a power user who need additional RAM and CPU. What options are available? So that's a great question. First of all, you need to understand that cloud PCs or Windows 365 can be scaled up or scaled down, not in terms of Azure scale up and scale down, in terms of performance. Like let's assume you assigned a user with 2 vCPU, 16 GB RAM machine, and for some reason they need more power. If you have enough licenses within your organization, you can actually upgrade the size to 4 vCPU, or you can downgrade the size as well, as long as you have the right license. So before I answer this, let me show you the capability in the portal. So if I go back to my admin portal and launch the admin center, on the left hand side you will be able to find an admin center for endpoint manager or Intune. You can see that there is an Intune admin center. Click on it, it takes you to the Intune admin center. Alright, so now we are in the Intune portal. So I don't want to spend a lot of time here. I just want to quickly show you, first and foremost, all the management related to Windows 365 is done here. So you click under Windows 365, you can see all the cloud PCs or Windows 365 instance assigned within your organization, all the users, who is using it, is it provisioned, does it have any problem, things like that. And we talked about the resize. So if anybody need a extra performance, you can click on this resize option, and that will allow you to go up or down as long as you have the right licenses in your tenant. That's what I mean by upgrading or going down a performance level or going up a performance level. So that's how you answer that question. So the answers are either you can use the Windows 365 resize, which I showed you before, or you can use the switch option, which is nothing but you can integrate your Windows 365 here. So when you switch, when you click on this toggle, and you will be able to switch between your local device and Windows 365. That is quite a good option, especially because if your local device is less powered machine and you have a high power Windows 365, you can switch between these two, vice versa. So that's how you answer this question, either Windows 365 resize or switch. But even switch is an optional answer. The right answer is actually resize. Switch is an additional thing you can do after resizing to actually make the experience seamless, switching back between your local device and your Windows 365 instance.